Hey everyone, good morning and welcome to Edmarc. Welcome to our kitchen. I'm Debbie Steitzer-Brain and I'm proud to serve as the agency's executive director, and I wanted to welcome all of you to this year's 13th Annual Friendraising Breakfast. Well, first and foremost, we hope that you all are doing well, your families are doing well, and the good news is all the families here at Edmarc are doing as well as we could expect. Our staff are safe and they're healthy. And today is a very special day. It looks a little bit different than years past. We've had our fundraising breakfast at the Paradise Ocean Club in the past, and it's been a huge success. You all have been a part of that. But because of COVID-19 this year, we had to get a little creative, and we still wanted you to be a part of our lives and involved in the fundraising breakfast this year. So we decided that we would, let's start in the kitchen at Edmarc and invite you into our home here in our family within Edmarc. And so the best thing we could do, I guess, is start with breakfast. And so for me, typically I start out with a little bit of spinach in most days, and then I combine it with a few eggs. So this is real live, so if I make a blunder or anything, just give me a mulligan. We can do it over. So anyway, as we get ready to celebrate this year's fundraising breakfast, I'm gonna ask you guys maybe to grab your breakfast. What's your go-to? If it's a bagel, or is it some fruit, or is it some yogurt, or you might be doing some of the same things that I'm doing, is whipping up a little bit of egg mixture and maybe with some spinach, some salt and pepper, some garlic powder, onion powder, all those good things that make things taste good. And then you might want to grab some toast, toss it in the toaster, and maybe even a little bit of hummus, because I'm a big hummus fan. But so today, we want to mirror it a little bit like we have in the past of bringing everyone in, recognizing that, bringing togetherness and recognizing that we all want to do something good. Especially we want to think about giving back to the Edmarc kids and families and allowing us to do what we do so well here. So what I'm asking y'all to do is go ahead and pull together your favorite breakfast item. Grab yourself a little bit of coffee, tea, juice, whatever you want to do, and we'll catch up with you in just a little while. And until then, enjoy your breakfast. I'm going to have some, and I do want to do a little shout out before we move on, and that's a special shout out to Betty Hazel. Hey Betty! Betty has been a long-time donor of ours, and she really set the stage for this year's event. She made a contribution of $15,000. Thanks, Betty. And then also remind everybody that the reason that we are doing this is that it started out as an idea to celebrate and remember the life of Taylor Adkins, one of the little ones that we had taken care of. And the idea came alongside with her mom and Baxter Simmons Sr. So today we remember and we celebrate their lives. And as we go through the morning, enjoy your breakfast, grab your coffee, and we'll catch you in the living room for a special guest. Take care. We'll see you in a few moments. Welcome back, everybody. And this is really the special part of the presentation, that if you've attended any of the breakfasts in the past, you know that this is the most poignant moment in the morning. One thing I do want to share with you all, for those of you that remember, we started doing this breakfast 13 years ago. And it really came from an idea of one of our families, Amy Thorstad, and a dear friend of ours, Baxter Simmons Sr. And together with the two of them and many of our volunteers, they came up with this great idea about how can we raise awareness about the good work of Edmarc, but also simultaneously, how could we raise our fan base and funds necessary to operate the organization? And hence, 13 years later, we're still doing the fundraising breakfast. It looks a little bit different today, but we felt like we still needed to do this. The message is so important. The message of what we do and who we are about keeping kids out of the institutions and keeping them in the home with their parents is more important now than ever before. And this morning, we have Liz Alden here sharing her story, her family's life with Sammie. And welcome to Edmarc. Not that you're a stranger here, but Liz, we're really happy that you're willing to share your story. We know we've been a part of your family for a really long time. And I know I've known you for 20 plus years now. I remember you were one of the very first parents that called me when I first took the helm at Edmarc, and I'll never forget it. I think folks are going to really want to know a little bit about, what was it like when Sammie was born? Tell us about that.
Well, I'm very humbled and I am very appreciative of the opportunity to give back to Edmarc with my story. So when you asked me, if I would do this, I said, oh my goodness, of course. So here we are, and Sammie, she was my beautiful little girl. We got here in 1994. I was active duty, Air Force, and I was 9 months pregnant with my son Nicholas. We came from New York City where I had Sammie. Sammie was born in 1992, and she was born with trisomy 13, a chromosomal disorder. I had never heard of trisomy 13. I carried Sammie 9 months. I had a regular vaginal delivery. I had 3 ultrasounds. Everything was wonderful. I was an Air Force recruiter. My husband was in the Navy. And we had just got married. Sammie was the honeymoon baby. And the day of delivery was normal. And then as soon as she was delivered, the doctors whisked her away. And all I heard was, she has a cleft lip. And I thought, okay, I've heard of folks with cleft lips, and I didn't think nothing more of it. And so, they sent me to my recovery room, and the next thing I knew, everything started going really fast. The doctors came into my room, and they said, your child has trisomy 13, she has a cleft lip, she was born with her stomach out, she's not going to live past a week, we need to get the surgery done for her stomach. And honestly, I was delirious. I was like, what? Like, what are you even talking about? And my husband had gone back home to check on my mother, who had the beginnings of dementia. I, of course, was in shock, and I told the doctors, no, go away. I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean my daughter's going to die? What's trisomy 13? And so I waited for my husband to come in that evening, and he started explaining things to me. And my delivery doctor came and stood at the foot of my bed. I will never forget this. And he stood at the foot of my bed and he said to me, put her in a home. You're going to have more children. Forget about her. She's going to die. Just put her in a home. And I couldn't get over that. Like, well, first of all, I hadn't even seen Sammie yet. I didn't understand what was going on. What do you mean she's going to die? Well, why should I put her in a home? What are you talking about? And then the surgeon comes in, not even 2 seconds later. We need to do the surgery. She has an omphalocele, and we need to get that surgery done. So I had still not seen Sammie. In the meantime, my husband had already been down to the NICU. He'd already held her little finger. He was already in love with her, and I was just saying, wait. So, and then a social worker came in and was giving me pamphlets of different nursing homes, different places where I could put my child. So just fast forward the next day, I still hadn't seen her, and quite frankly, I didn't know that I wanted to see her. I was in shock. And I was being told she's gonna pass away. I had just delivered, every body part was killing me. And I was just sobbing my eyes out. And I will never forget this nurse. I love nurses. I think they are heroes of this world. This NICU nurse, her name is Jennifer. If you're watching this, Jennifer, wherever you are, this is like 28 years ago, I love you. She came into my room the next night, and she had took a little Polaroid picture of Sammie. And she had made her a little t-shirt that she personally painted with her name on it. And she came into my room and she said to me, I know you don't want to see her, and I know that you're in shock. And Sammie is probably going to pass away. But then she slid the Polaroid picture at the edge of the bed. And she said, I just want to leave this here with you. I think you'll regret it if you don't just go see her and hold her. And just give the NICU a call, and they'll let you in. And then of course she left, and I bawled my eyes out, and I was like, oh my God. So then I went to call and pick up the phone to call, the NICU. And when I finally got to see Sammie the next day, You know, the moment I saw her, the moment I saw that little baby girl with her cleft lip and she, you know, her little tummy out, and she was the size of my hand from here to here. And she was full term. I put her in my arms, and that was the beginning of 17 years. I never let her go. Of course, she had so many things going on with her. She was going to need a G-tube for life. She had a cleft lip, bilateral palate. She had, you know, severe mental delay. She had lots of seizures. She had 6 little digits on her toes, which we never took off, and then she had a 6th digit on her finger, and those they tied off. And you know, my husband was, oh honey, we're gonna be fine, and you know, she's gonna live a great life. And all I could see was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Holy moly! Oh, what and you know, fast forward, we brought her home. You know, with the intent, according to the doctors, that she would. Well, I'm sorry. Fast forward, she was in the NICU for 2 months, and when we finally did bring her home, it was with the intent that she wasn't going to live past the first week. Well, she lived past the first week, 2 weeks, a month. I finally got to a point where I said, you know what? We can't live like this. We're going to get on with living, because this little girl is not going anywhere. We were able to get her 24-hour care while I was active duty. That was a juggle. And everybody would tell us, Sammie is never going to sit. She's never going to walk. She's never going to this. She's never going to be that. Her name was Sammie Never Visalden. But it wasn't Sammie Never Visalden. That word didn't exist in her brain. You know, a year went by and Sammie was still around, and we celebrated her first birthday. We had this fabulous, wonderful doctor, Dr. Short. Our first doctor's visit with her, she told us exactly what was going on with Sammie. Your child has trisomy 13, but here's a box of tissues, and let's get on with taking care of her. That was the first doctor that ever said that to me. I love you, Dr. Short, wherever you're at. I just decided that, well, I don't have time for this death. Sammie's gonna go when Sammie's gonna go. So, through all of this, all of these years, well, you asked me at the beginning of Sammie's story, so let me stop talking.
No, we want to hear that. And we think folks would love to hear, you were in New York, and then you moved to Virginia.
Yes.
And then a group of Edmarc people somehow entered your life. How did that happen?
So, you know, that part is just a little blurry, but when we first got here, first of all, and just to show you state to state how everything is different. And I know a lot of parents are going to say right now, as I say this to them, yeah, and the laws need to be changed, but that's another conversation. So in the state of New York City, if you're born with a disability, well, at least back then, I don't know what it's like now, you automatically got Medicaid, SSI. So we were covered for home health nursing. When we found out that we were coming to Virginia, my husband's base in Staten Island was getting closed. And, you know, 2 active duty military just can't take care of a special needs child and risk, somebody's gonna have to get out, somebody's gonna have to something. And so I found out through a friend of mine that I could get stationed here in Virginia. So my husband looked into it, and he could get stationed at Little Creek. So I got stationed at Langley, he got stationed at Little Creek Naval Base. But before we did that, I tried to do my research. I called the state of Virginia, the SSI department, and the Medicaid, and they said, oh yes, of course, your daughter, she qualifies for everything. You know, once you get here, you can do the paperwork. And I thought, okay, well, just as we were getting stationed here, I got pregnant with Nicholas. And the sunshine of my life. And he's such a great brother. And so,
yes, he is.
You know, we came down here with the intent, okay, well, you know, we're gonna come to Virginia, we're gonna start a new life, we're gonna get Sammie's care that she needs, and everything's gonna be okay. Well, when we got here and I went to apply for her Medicaid and her SSI, and the reason that I was applying for this was so that I could get the nursing care. That's really all I needed, was the nursing care for her, so that I could go, my husband and I could go to work and leave Sammie with a nurse, because we were never going to put her in a nursing home. I just wasn't going to do that. Not to say that there are parents who've had to make that decision, they've had to make that decision to put their child in a home for children. And I wasn't going to do it. So when we got here, we were told, oh no, we can't do that. Virginia is not, your child doesn't qualify for that. It's based on your income. So we lost all her nursing care. I think that one of the doctors at Langley Air Force Base knew about Edmarc, and they put us in contact, they put Edmarc in contact with us. And I remember the social worker coming in, the intake person, I can't remember her name, it's been so long, but I remember her coming in and she gave me a quilt. I still have this quilt, it's 28 years and I have this quilt. And she said, well, we're here and we're gonna take care of Sammie and we're gonna take care of your family. And at first when I heard hospice, I thought, I don't need hospice, Sammie's not dying. I hate that word, hospice. Well, what do we need a hospice for? And so then she explained to me what Edmarc was about. And I thought, well, I just need the nursing care. I don't need anything else. I don't need all the support. I just need somebody to come and help me take care of Sammie so that I can go to work, so I don't get kicked out of the Air Force, because I want to make it to my 20 years so that I can get my pension. And my husband, he can't lose his job in the Navy either. And by the way, I'm 9 months pregnant, literally like 9 months pregnant. When I walked into my boss's, when I walked into my squadron, 9 months pregnant with a special needs child and mother with dementia, I can only imagine what my boss must have thought. You want to get out? So Edmarc came in with a bang. Edmarc was my lifesaver. Edmarc was, and I can literally, this is the best way that I can describe it for everyone. It's like somebody being out to sea and they fall overboard in the ocean and they're trying to make it back on that boat and they're drowning. They are literally drowning. They do not know how to get back on that boat. And Edmarc throws them a life raft and pulls them in. That was Edmarc.
And so, Liz, when you say that, I mean, that's a powerful statement.
It is.
And you and I know all the intricate details, but can you share what that lifeline felt like?
Okay, so initially Edmarc was able to provide 4 hours of nursing care. And let me begin by saying, we never got a bill. We never got asked to pay anything. We never got asked for our insurance because we had military insurance. That part, I think Edmarc was taking care of that behind the scenes. But that was just something that we never had to even think about. So I got nursing care for 4 hours. The nurse was Janice. Mm-hmm. I would say her last name, but she would say, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And she was amazing. And she would come in for 4 hours in between my husband and I. We had different shifts. So I worked the days and I worked the nights and he worked the days, so that we just had 4 hour interval in there. And she would come in and she would G-tube feed Sammie, because Sammie she was G-tube fed forever. She would give her medicines. She would make sure that she was provided for, that she would give her if she was getting a cold or anything, she was on top of Sammie. It was having the hospital in the house with us. She was wonderful. She never came in and intruded in our home. Edmarc evolved into a different type of nursing care, right, services. But we kept Janice, and we had Janice for 17 years. We followed her to all of the nursing agencies. But she truly was, an Edmarc nurse. And I've talked to her. I'm still in touch with her. I would never have met her if it hadn't been for Edmarc. And she's always told me that Edmarc was, she was a brand new nurse, and Edmarc was her foundation and taught her so much about taking care of children. So not only did Edmarc help me with the nursing, but they also took care of my son, Nicholas. Edmarc would come during Christmas and bring Santa Claus and bring gifts. My son's 26 years old, and I broke it to him at 13 years old that there really isn't a Santa Claus, because all the kids started making fun of him at school. Because he grew up with Santa Claus. Edmarc would come every year and bring gifts, and not just for Nicholas, but for us, for my mom. You would bring food basket, or during Thanksgiving, Christmas, have Easter egg hunts. Sammie's life, when I tell you, the first 6-7 years that Christmas, the winters would come, I would cringe. Lots of families are looking forward to the holidays. They love Christmas, Thanksgiving. It's a time of getting together. For me, it was a time when Sammie would get a pneumonia, and I was going to be in the hospital. I knew it. It was coming. And sure enough, Nicholas's first year of birth, I was in the hospital with Sammie. And again, every time Sammie went into the hospital, the doctors would tell me the same thing. It's like it became a song. Well, you know, she's not going to make it. You should get ready. Call the family. Every year. I got to a point where I just stopped hearing that. I didn't pay attention to that anymore. I didn't believe it. Because Sammie was the kid that's what you said, but then, you know, a couple of days later, she was sitting up in the bed and she was pulling her IVs out and she was just ready to go. It wasn't her time. So Edmarc was there for us. They would come in. Lori. Oh my goodness. I love Lori. Lori and the other nurses would come in every week. And my social worker, Brittany, oh my God, Brittany would come in once a week and she'd be like, how's everything going? She would just come in to check up on me. Not to look, just how's it going? You need anything? How's Nicholas doing? How's your mom? How's your husband? Hey, Sammie, just to check up, just to say hi. Have a cup of coffee with me. Lori would come in and check Sammie. I remember calling Lori at 3 o'clock in the morning one time. This was towards the end when Sammie was starting to, her body was tired. You know, she was 1 month shy of 17 and she'd been through, oh my goodness, over 25 surgeries, over 30 hospitalizations of pneumonias, and towards the end, Sammie's body was just giving. And I never knew. Every time that pulse oximeter would go off, that beep, you know, she coughed the wrong way. And one night I really thought that it was the night that Sammie was going. And Laurie always told me, you just call me. I don't care what time of day or night it is. You just call me. And I would think, well, how am I going to call her at 3 o'clock in the morning? That woman is, I can't call anyhow. Maybe I should take her to the emergency room. And I never called Edmarc after 10 o'clock at night. I just couldn't do it. I felt like, well, how can you call and you're going to wake him up out of bed? And this one time I was so tired and I said, okay. And Laurie picked up the phone, like she'd been up all night, like she never went to sleep. And she said, oh, I'll be right there. Like nothing. And I was like, really? I'm sorry. She said, no, I'll be right there. And she came over. She looked bright as can be. She didn't look tired or anything. She came in. She checked Sammie out. She assessed her. She said, no, she's doing okay. I'm so sorry, Laurie, I called you for this. She goes, no, that's what we're here for. That is what we're here for. I said, but I don't have to take her to the hospital or anything. She don't, no. She just had a little plug, something. She's fine. Call me again. If you need me to come back in an hour, I'll come back in an hour. Who does that? That's Edmarc. That's Edmarc. And Edmarc has been there for me for 17 years. And now it's been 11 years. This July 17th is actually 11 years that Sammie's been gone and my little butterfly left me. And Edmarc is still there for me. Edmarc is there for my family.
For you to be able to share is hugely impactful. And you so share, Sammie, so freely. That little girl, the thing I remember the most is how she smiled and her giggle. I mean, she had a language that if the only way you understood is if you were involved with her. And she had this beautiful way of expressing herself. And I see her and I see Nicholas and I see your husband and her. You talk about Lori, and Lori's one of the nurses here. She's the director of clinical services. Lori is a powerhouse. She's a hero of mine too, as well as every staff member here are heroes of mine. And I know Lori was with you at the end.
You know, that's a part of Edmarc that, you know, Edmarc has so many facets, but my journey, my husband's journey, my son's journey, my family, everyone that was connected to Sammie, the journey continued in the sense of where, well, for me, then came the grief. You know, some people say to me, well, you know, you had her for 17 years. Lots of moms don't have them for maybe a month or two or a couple of years. And I know they mean well. And in some ways, they're right. I am very lucky that I had her for 17 years. But it was not enough. And it would never be enough. Grief, when you lose a child, is the worst thing that can happen to anyone. When I lost Sammie, and you know, I want you to understand that Sammie was the child that they kept telling me from day one. That year that Sammie passed away, well, let me backtrack. Let me just say this. One thing that I did that I do regret, and I would say to any parent out there, my one regret is that I was so busy taking care of Sammie's disability that I don't know that I was taking care of Sammie, my child, but I was so busy taking care of her disability, trying to keep her alive, making sure she had the meds, making sure I got her to the doctor, making sure that if she needed a surgery, making sure that cough was cleared, making sure this, making sure that. I just didn't stop to really look and to see that she was getting tired. And when she passed away, my son looked at me and he said, Mom, Sammie was tired. You just didn't see. She was getting ready to pass away. You just didn't see it. You were so busy taking care of her. And I thought, I didn't see it. And Sammie had a heart attack in the doctor's office, in the pediatrician's office in April, if you can imagine. I took her in I thought she had a pneumonia, so I took her in to see the doctor, and the poor doc, she had a heart attack in his office during the doctor's visit. Thank God we were at Langley Air Force Base and they were able to, whisk her into the ER and they resuscitated her and she bounced back. I know you ladies remember. You were like, what? Again, Sammie wasn't going anywhere. So after a month of being in the hospital, we brought her home and I thought, well, let me roll up my sleeves and let me get back to work. I gotta make sure her medicine's in order. I gotta make sure that the Medicaid doesn't expire. I gotta make sure that her doctor visits are right. I gotta make sure that the clothes are washed. I gotta make sure that Nicholas gets to Boy Scouts. I gotta make sure that my husband is taken care of. In the meantime, Sammie's body was getting tired. And I was lucky enough to have her till July. And 2 weeks before she passed away, Edmarc had their annual summer picnic where Edmarc comes together and brings all the families together. And for that one day, it's a beautiful summer picnic. The kids are able to run around, the siblings, the children are having a wonderful time. The parents get to breathe. And that day was beautiful. Sammie actually got to sit on a motorcycle with, what's the motorcycle club? Right? And her oxygen tank was connected to her.
I'll never forget that,
and
ever.
And we put the wipe on the motorcycle, so just in case she peed, because you never know.
We had to put the chucks on there.
The chucks. And we put her on there. And I have a picture of her holding on and trying to grab the motorcycle guy's helmet. And
his ponytail.
Yes.
Remember he had a ponytail and she kept trying to tug on that.
And my husband's holding her and the oxygen tank, the oxygen tubing is on her.
And she was
smiling. Ear to ear. Yes.
Ear to ear.
And there you were having a wonderful time and all the Edmarc nurses and the children. And
what a great memory.
It was beautiful. That's what Edmarc does. And then we took her home, and 2 weeks later she passed away. And that day that she passed away, not Laurie, but Geneva. Oh my goodness, I miss you, Geneva, wherever you are. Geneva would come. And by this time, Geneva and Laurie were coming practically every day. And I really thought in my mind, for 17 years, that Sammie was just gonna lay in her bed and I was gonna be holding her hands and I was going to be, transitioning her to our Lord. Well, that's not how Sammie rolls. That day, Geneva came and she checked her and she said, she seems okay, she's okay. By the time Janice got there, Sammie started kind of looking like she was getting short of breath. And so by the time Janice left, Sammie was stable. And, by then I was sleeping in the room with Sammie. I was sleeping on the little love seat and she was hooked up to the oxygen and I could hear that pulse oximeter going, beep, beep, beep. Every time I go in the hospital and I hear that, it just takes me back. I slept with her that night. Well, I slept with her every night towards the end. It was around 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was sitting her in the feeder chair. I didn't want to lay her down because every time I lay her down, her sats would drop. So I sat her up, inclined. And she woke me up because she hit me on the head. Like, Mom, wake up. And I was so tired because by then I was sleeping 2 hours a night. That was all. I was pretty much on empty. My mother by then was in a nursing home. I had to put her in the nursing home. I never thought I would ever have to do that. But I had to pick between my mother who had dementia and my daughter and my husband and my son. I couldn't take care of everybody at the same. I just couldn't do it. So by then I was sleeping 2 hours because every time that pulse oximeter goes off, you wake up. Every time she coughs, do I have to suction her? What's going on? Is she having a seizure? What's the matter? Do I have to take her in? So I woke up and, it was that she was pooped and I needed to change her. And I changed her, I laid her down and I saw the time and then I thought, oh, it's time to give her medicine because she had mitral valve regurgitation. That was one of the things that she had. As I was giving her the medicine in her G-tube, she crunched her eyes at me. She just looked deep in my eyes and she had this face and she looked at me like, I'm tired, Mom. And then she took her last breath. And I thought, are you having another heart attack? You cannot be having a heart attack. And I screamed bloody murder. And instead of staying there with her, this is the panic that comes into you. Everybody reacts different, but this is my story. And as I saw her take the last breath, instead of me staying there and trying to, resuscitate, I screamed and I ran to get my husband who was sleeping. Honey, wake up. I think Sammie just had a heart attack. He comes running and he looks at her and he picks her up and he pulls her on the floor and he starts resuscitating her. And then I ran to get the ambu bag to try to, I practiced this over and over again. Edmarc had taught me over and over and over again what to do if she stops breathing, I ran over it like a paramedic, like a policeman, like a fireman. You run over it. Oh, what should I do? I'm military. I should know what to do. So when I ran to get the ambu bag, I see my husband. He's passed out flat on the floor. I think suddenly getting up so fast, it was just too much for him. And so I start resuscitating her, and he pops back up, and he takes over, and I went and I called the paramedics. And then I called Lori right away. And so the paramedics came and they come in and then of course they start, checking her vitals and so on. And they look at her and they're like, well, do you want us to resuscitate her? And they looked at my husband and my husband looked at me. And I looked at them and I said, why do I have to decide this? And they said, you have to decide. And in that moment, I thought to myself, so if they resuscitate her, she's going back in the hospital and she's got to get intubated and they're going to poke and prod her and they're going to give her more stuff. How long does this child go through this? And will she come out of it or will she not? And so I said, well, can you at least find out if she has a pulse? And when they said sure, and then they did, Sammie was gone. And they said, there's nothing. And I said, let her go. Because it wasn't about me or my family. It was about her. Let her go. Let her be at peace. Let her body heal. Let her run around in heaven, giggling. And, I can speak like this now because it's been 11 years, but if I spoke like this just a couple of months before she passed away, I couldn't do it without breaking down. And of course, once they said that, I stepped out and I screamed. This scream that came out of I've never screamed like that since. It was just this gut scream that came out of me that I think said it all. And my son, who'd been sleeping, came out of his room and he said, Mom, what's going on? There's fire trucks in there. Is Sammie sick again? And I looked at him and I said, Nicholas, Sammie just passed away. And you know what the first words that came out of him were? He said, Mom, now you can rest. It's 11 years and I'm just starting to rest. And it's okay. Like Brittany, I always used to tell Brittany, I'm okay, but I'm really okay. So let me tell you how Edmarc walked in. So the next thing I know, and some of this is kind of a blur. Well, no, it's not, but it is. Lori comes in because I'd already called her. And she had taught me how to do the DNR order. She told me exactly what to do. The moment anything happens with Sammie, just pick up the phone. Do not call the funeral parlor. Do not call anybody. Call Edmarc. I called Lori. Lori came. Lori was magnificent. I will never forget Lori. The grace, that's the word I want to use. The grace of a nurse, of a woman, of a lady, truly at her best, truly at what she does. She came in. It was like she was quiet. She never, I don't even know if she said hello to me, hugged me, what. She just came in. And she started making the phone calls, calling whoever needed to be called. Took all the medicine away, all the narcotics away, cleared all that out, stayed there with me while I gave Sammie a beautiful bath, combed her hair in pigtails, dressed her up. The nurses came that were taking care of her, Janice. We all just loved Sammie those last few minutes. We were preparing her for her next journey. Then the funeral service came, and they were gonna come into the house, and my husband said no. And he was the first one to hold her when she was born, and he was the last one to hold her. He picked her up from the bed and carried her outside to the what's it called? The car, the long car.
The hearse.
I'm sorry, the hearse, and carried her and laid her there. Now I want you to know what Lori did. Wow. She, the funeral person, you know, gracious and all, he zipped her up completely. Lori said, stop. She went and unzipped her face. Do you understand that moment? Like, unzipped her face and said, now you can take her. That was Lori. And then, you know, of course they took Sammie, you know, to the funeral place, and Lori still stayed behind and made sure that we were okay, and you know, made sure everything was cleared and everything was good, and then of course she had to leave because there's so many more children that Edmarc has to take care of, the other children, other families, and I'm sure she was going off to visit another family. And then she left, and you know, dead silence, and there's so much there. And then I had to take my son he was in a robotics summer camp, so we had to take him to that because my son has to have a normal life as much as he can. So I took him to robotics. And then in between there's a lot of blurring, and you know, and I've called Lori, I've called Brittany, the social worker, every couple of years. That first year I would call them and I would say, can you tell me about that day? How was I? It's like I wanted to relive everything, and I wanted to reminisce. And who would want to relive that? But I wanted to know, how was I? And they never were too busy for me. And they would talk, pick up the phone, sure, let me tell you what you did. Let me talk. They never stop. You guys never stop. And then of course there was the funeral for Sammie, and you were all there. You were all there. I didn't call. I stopped calling people. You were all there for Sammie's quinceañera when I had her sweet 15, and she danced with her father in her pink tutu and her pink top. And you all came, and we all did the conga line with her in her oxygen tank.
The hotel ballroom,
all of it. You guys were always there. You were part of our family.
And we will continue to be, and have been for a long time, as we are with many families that have come through our doors over the years. And I think that's probably the one thing that I hear over and over again from families, is that once you are an Edmarc family, as you said, you continue to be an Edmarc family. And I think that's the difference about an organization like Edmarc. You know, I'm a nurse. Everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. And we've worked in some really great places. But this is not work. This is truly about relationships and caring for people the way they need to be cared for. And our little ones that we care for in our homes. You know, as we think about wrapping up this year's breakfast, it's very different than it has been in years past. You know, we were supposed to start talking about, we were going to launch the fact that we were going to be expanding our service area into Williamsburg and the counties at the breakfast. Mm-hmm. Well, because COVID-19 showed its ugly face, those plans to expand are on hold right now. There are so many more children and families who need our help, but we just can't risk, jeopardizing the core services that we have here at Edmarc right now. And so this year's breakfast is even more important to have your message, your family story, your little girl story, Sammie, shared with folks. As we come to the end of this event, we just really want folks to recognize the importance of the organization. We've been around for 42 years. We're not going anywhere. The difference now is that we need folks' help more than ever before. When I think of the children that we're caring for right now, on our daily census for our clinical program, there are approximately 70 children who need our help. There are 32 families in our outreach bereavement program, and there are 164 in our community outreach. All of those families need our help. When you think about the stressors that Liz and families endure on a daily basis with a child who has special needs and a life-threatening illness, it's a huge burden that I can't even imagine. But then you factor in COVID-19 and all the stressors that families are experiencing. There is no way they can endure that journey by themselves. All the more reason that Edmarc needs to be there. And we will be there, because we ask everyone today to think about giving. Liz said, do a fundraiser. How about non-perishable food items? We could use those. Somebody brought in toilet tissue for us today. If we all did our part, Edmarc would be able to continue doing what it does so well.
Can I just add something?
Of course.
And when you first asked me to do this, I thought that we were going to be at eating breakfast. I was going to be standing behind a podium. I had the speech all written out. I'm glad I don't have to. But the one thing that was, that I wrote about, and because of the COVID-19, I've heard a lot of, I keep hearing the news stations saying, oh, when we get back to normal. But the thing is, I thought about it, normal. So Edmarc, this is normal. This has always been normal. When this COVID-19 ends, Edmarc is still going to be going the same way, business as usual. Families still wear their masks. Don't come into my house if you have a cold. They're still worrying about if they have to take them to the hospital. They're still taking care, they're still dealing with all of the sickness, whatever is going, it doesn't end. This is the normal for Edmarc. It's business as usual. And the nurses, Edmarc, the families, this is how we roll, I guess. This is how Edmarc rolls. And the thing is that Edmarc never asked the families directly for any money or anything. This is all, through the love, the generosity of everybody that comes in contact with Edmarc. And you'll find that the Edmarc families, we pay it forward. And I personally, I know that there's so many exceptional organizations out there that need your help. But I believe that Edmarc is there's so much in the word Edmarc is, so that I hope you will find it in your heart, to help Edmarc be.
You all, this is a time for us to be resilient and to recover. And that's where we are today. And with your help, we can do that. So we ask, if you can give, please do. And if you can give in other ways, please do as well. We wish we were with you in person. We wish we could reach out and touch you and hug you. Those of you that know me know that I am one of the biggest huggers in the world. But until then, we say, stay well, be safe. We miss you, we love you. And how about a little hug? What do you think? You all take care, be well.